I believe that sports are one of the best ways to build communication and that they create environments that facilitate communication. This is especially true with team sports like basketball, where better communication leads to better teamwork and chemistry on the court. You want your team to be connected because it will make them better as a whole, but beyond a tightly knit team, I think basketball and the culture surrounding it allow for intercultural communication. This can be between microcultures or even with a language barrier involved. The use of body language in making plays on the court really transcends any cultural differences. This may be a reason that the NBA became so popular in Japan, which is the place where we'll be heading to today. Starting in the 90s, basketball saw an immense rise in popularity in Japan, becoming one of its top 5 most played sports. But what occurred to cause this shift, and what does basketball in Japan look like today? Well, that's what we're here to answer. Basketball has been around in Japan a lot longer than many think, and a lot longer than I would have guessed before researching for this video. Basketball was first invented in 1891, a very long time ago, by James Naismith, and is thought to have been introduced in Japan as early as 1902. I was surprised to learn that basketball got across the world in just about a decade, but this seems to be the case because it was already being played in Tokyo YMCA's in 1908. Japan could also be considered pioneers of women's basketball because it was very popular among women in these early stages of the sport. This is due to similarities with other games and how it was a very cheap sport to play because it did not require any other gear or equipment, making it much more common in schools. However, it would be many decades before basketball would be on top in terms of the top sports in the country. Even to this day, these sports are still baseball and soccer, but back then, basketball was nowhere near the top 5. So let's get to that boom in popularity. The 1990s were a golden age of NBA basketball, and the immense traction that the biggest basketball league in the world was getting in North America eventually spread to the rest of the world. The 90s was packed full of Hall of Fame talents, and many teams were competing for a title, but one team stood above the rest, Jordan's Bulls. The insane three-peats from those Chicago Bulls teams definitely was enough to get some people into the NBA all on its own. But that's not the reason I chose this topic. You see, the real leading factor in the rise of basketball in Japan was not the actual NBA, but something inspired by it. From 1990 to 1996, a manga by the name of Slam Dunk was released in weekly volumes. The author, and forgive me if I mess up this pronunciation, Takehiko Ino, created many of the characters based off of real NBA stars, such as Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, and Dennis Rodman to name some. And this manga is widely credited for the insane boost of popularity of the sport in Japan, as well as a boost in Japanese NBA viewership. Ino played high school basketball and aimed to share his love of the sport with a large audience. And he definitely succeeded, because since its first volume in 1990 up until today, Slam Dunk has sold over 170 million copies worldwide, making it a top 10 selling manga of all time, and by far the best selling sports related manga. As the NBA was becoming a global sensation, this manga it inspired would be soon to follow. Slam Dunk was considered a pop culture phenomenon and had a wide array of merchandise, as well as an animated series made from it, which only made it even bigger. It just goes to show the power of the arts. Music, literature, and film are all capable of inspiring a generation, and this manga inspired many to start playing basketball. Along with popularity, Japan also saw a rise in basketball talent, creating their own pro and semi-pro leagues, and also seeing the first Japanese players with international success. The first Japanese NBA player was Yuta Tabus, who debuted with the Phoenix Suns in 2004. The first Japanese player to be drafted in the NBA draft was Rui Hachimura in 2019. Hachimura was a lottery pick, meaning he was one of the best players in that draft class and is still playing today for the Los Angeles Lakers. Since Rui, there have been plenty of other players, including Yuki Kawamura, who is currently the shortest NBA player, standing at 5'8", and has shown impressive skill in his current stint with the Memphis Grizzlies. These players all exemplify how the game has evolved in Japan, going from a sport that was barely played to having players at the highest level in just around 30 years. Today, Japan has their own pro basketball league called the B-League and a giant NBA fan base, some of whom travel all the way to America to see their favorite players play live and in person. The B-League may very well become the second most viewed pro basketball league behind the NBA in the near future. They just had their biggest year ever and are definitely rising in the ranks among other notable pro leagues such as the EuroLeague. For example, the B-League had a 40% increase in attendance last season, and this can be partly credited to Japan co-hosting the 2023 FIBA World Cup. Overall, it's very impressive how far basketball has come in Japan in such a short time, and very cool that the first surge of popularity can be credited to the Slam Dunk series. Basketball has become a part of Japanese culture, and both the NBA and Slam Dunk now have a much larger reach than the places where they were first created. This brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for listening. I will have my sources on screen here, all the places where I got any information for this video. I just thought it was such an interesting topic that something that was originally released as, a weekly part of a magazine got so huge and really inspired a whole country to start playing a sport. But once again, thank you so much for listening. I'm out.